check once. We were just talking about how this is my first live, and
Mhm.
even though I've been a creator and in the creator economy for 2 years, things like this still can be very nerve wracking.
Mhm.
So I'm just going to quickly verify if we are indeed live, which I think we should be.
Mhm.
Um, yes, we are. Wonderful.
Fantastic. I've connected my channels as well, so hopefully
No,
we
that's
get a
that's
few
wonderful.
people.
But yes,
Fantastic.
welcome everyone. We have a very exciting masterclass up ahead. Um,
Mhm. Excited to be here.
yes, I'm in echo.
Yeah, are you hearing my echo by any chance? I do have Hey guys, this is definitely live. And I can
Yes.
hear you perfectly, Adol.
Okay. So sorry about that. I was just hearing an echo at mine. But yes, we are live. Very excited for this masterclass. Today we are going to talk about how to generate your first $10,000 from social media. And we have a very special guest, and I'm going to get to introductions very soon. But this episode is going to be a little different in the sense that we want to take a very practical approach. So here at Video AI, we've talked to our customers extensively, and what we've realized is we have a lot of service owners, we have a lot of people who are doing really interesting businesses, and we wanted to reach out to an expert such as yourself, Faye, and really walk someone through if they are doing a business for the first time, how they would go about generating the revenue and growing their business to a very specific amount, the milestone of
Mhm.
$1,000, which is very popular on social media, step by step. So, what I would love for us to start off with is, of course, we've talked before, but just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and what you do. And then from there, we'll get into a very practical approach, right? Of we'll pick like a certain niche or a certain persona of a business owner, and we'll try to break down what exactly they should do step by step to reach that milestone. But yes, over to you. Would love to know more about you and would love to
Sure.
know what you do.
Thank you so much, Adol and Video AI. I really appreciate this incredible invitation to be here and to connect with people live. And briefly about myself, and feel free to throw me questions from the live audience as well as from yourself, Adol. So my name is Fei Wu, and my company is called Face World Media. And to spell my name correctly, it's F as in Frank, EISWORLD. I started being a creator back in 2012, 2013, and officially people knew me as the podcaster who started my show called Face World Podcast in 2014. And from there, really, I started to see clients rolling in within about the first year or so, completely unexpectedly. We can talk about that in a moment. For those of you who are thinking about webinars and starting your podcast as a way to generate revenue, to get the word out. And in 2018, I went out on the road, selected about 11, 12 guests to interview them, and put together a mini docu-series and put it on Amazon, which was launched in 2019. At that same time, at that same year, I decided to be on YouTube, which is these days people call it a social media place. Very, very effective, in my opinion, to tell your stories, to generate really quality, high quality leads on YouTube. And since then, the business I'm running now is that I am a consultant to teach small business owners and creators how to start their full stack content marketing journey, meaning that there's so much that they can take advantage of, including social media, which is a big part of it, of course. So these days, I work with a lot of brands, some of which you have heard of, such as Adobe. For example, I'm also a voice, content voice for CNET and many other AI companies primarily these days. And I love work with individuals and small business owners as well. So in a nutshell, that's what I do, video content marketing. I also do a lot of webinars and I love connecting with people, on a live stream like this.
Yeah. No, super interesting. And we have a bunch of people who are with us already. Um, so to start off with, Faye, I really want to set up some context, right? And since we
Mhm.
are talking very specific goals here, In your experience so far with content, what are some of like the benchmarks for revenue that you have seen that were directly generated through content? Right, this could be for yourself, perhaps some of the clients that you've seen. What is possible? Because oftentimes people don't really believe that something is possible until they see actual fact and proof. So,
Mhm.
what can you really do with content?
Absolutely. So the good news is I've been a content creator. I've been in the consulting business for a little while now, and so I've seen a big variety of different clients. So I know Adel, before we started recording, we have examples like real estate agents, and then fitness instructors, fitness creators, whom I happen to work with quite a bit, especially during the pandemic. And I would say, generally speaking, it is not unusual to start generating that first $1,000 per month as a content creator. There's so many ways to do that. Now I know $1,000 doesn't really sound like a lot, but when you think about, especially being in the US, if you're working a full time job, asking for a $12,000 raise a year is actually a lot. You don't always get it. And that is just the beginning. Now, for us as more mature content creators and the company, a lifestyle company that we're running, we have seen for ourselves anywhere between 15,000 to 35,000 per month for revenue generated. Now I will clarify that a lot of people think, oh, that's a lot of money, but it's possible for us to also sell 20, $30,000 worth of products that we have to then deliver in the next few months, right? It's not something that you just charge for and you're all done within that month. So I think it's important to clarify. I hope that kind of sets the benchmark a little bit. What I do want to mention is you have to be prepared to play the long game. This is not something that you start publishing on Instagram today, this week, and suddenly the money is just rolling in, right? So we can definitely get into some of the details there.
No, 100%. And completely agree with what you said about the long game. I'm relatively new to this. I've been doing this for just a few years now. But 100% agree that to really build up the momentum that you need to, start hitting those big figures
Mhm.
and directly start generating revenue from your content does take time. So I think patience is one of the most underrated skills that you need to succeed in the creator economy.
Mhm.
But that was wonderful. So I really want to jump right into it. And the way I really want to go about this is to talk about, let's take a specific persona, right? You
Mhm.
mentioned real estate agents. So let's say if I was a real estate agent in on the East Coast, right? If I was in New
Mhm.
York, and I had no social media presence. And for the first time, someone told me that, hey, you should get on social media. There's this guy called Ryan Serhant, right? Or any of these other people who are on who are making real estate content. And it's a great way for you to get more leads, for you to sell more houses, and
Mhm.
for you to grow your business. But I really have no idea about how to go about this, right?
Mhm.
So if I was a beginner, what would your first advice be? How should I go about this, knowing that my goal is to get to, let's say, $10,000 a month in revenue? Where should I start?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to clarify something in terms of social media. This is going to be a general term we're using throughout the webinar. So, social media means different things to different people. Traditionally, we're talking about Facebook, Instagram, X, which is previously Twitter, TikTok. But I also want to add in platforms that can work really well for small business owners, including YouTube and LinkedIn. So I know that those two traditionally not really seen as social media, but they really are these days. And the difference on YouTube is that you can produce long form as well as short form content. So, with that said, if you're a real estate agent, which I've had the pleasure to work with a number of them the past few years, I actually purchased a home about 3.5 years ago. So, the interaction with the real estate agent oftentimes starts kind of in person. And so, if you are an agent and you have colleagues who are already on social media and you're not, you're definitely missing out a significant portion of the market. Even if you're not selling houses directly from a piece of Instagram post, people want to build that trust with you. So, speaking which, different types of content that you could consider creating is that there are generic content that real estate agents tend to create. You can certainly research and see what they're doing and learn from them. And eventually going to find your own style. So, for example, a lot of real estate agents I have seen and followed tend to share a lot of houses and almost houses and pictures alone. And then the next level is some of them will have videos as well, which I think are really helpful, the different qualities of videos that you can consider. Now, what I think it's often missing, and I think this is the trivial part, is that real estate agents tend not to always talk about themselves and they don't really show up on camera very often. And I think that is a missing piece. So, what I'm trying to get at is if there are opportunities for you to create content that differentiate yourself from other people, that is a key information. Now, as a real estate agent, you can talk about your life, why you choose such a career, what it means to you and your family. For some of them, it offers a lot of flexibility. You can talk about your relationship, your love for the city, for local expertise. Maybe you're from there, maybe you're not. And I think those are definitely moments you can consider. And once you get closer to your audience, those leads are going to be higher quality. And that's eventually what you want. It's not just about the views, the comments, the vanity metrics. It's about what if you only have 100 followers, but you close at a much higher rate. So, on that note, I actually give a shout out to a dear mentor, Chris Voss, who basically authored this book called The Full Fee Agent. And he released the book, I believe, a couple of years ago. So, there are a lot of negotiation skills and tactics that you can consider as well. And maybe some of them can turn into your content too.
No, that was super insightful. I think there's a lot to unpack there.
Mhm.
Starting off with, you mentioned a very interesting point of not just the various platforms and why social media should not be used as a blanket term. Uh,
Mhm.
each platform is specific to a certain type of audience, right? So, for
Mhm.
example, if you're a real estate agent, maybe Snapchat is not the best for you, right?
Mhm.
Maybe people who buy houses are not really on Snapchat. Um, so that's one that you have to understand what each platform is relevant for.
Mhm.
The second thing that I really want to double click on is formats, right? So
Mhm.
there's text, there is pictures, there are carousels, and there's video, right? So
Mhm.
of course we are doing this on video, and almost everyone is now on video as a format. But talk a little bit about that. I would love like for the people to know why video is the most powerful format. At least I believe so. Is that right? I would love to know.
I think video is very powerful, not only according to you or me. HubSpot actually conducted surveys and analytics around the most effective format, content format, which has been videos, even before we start talking about video being the most popular. So the data, I believe, is at least 3 to 5 years in a row. You can actually download those reports for free from HubSpot. Um, in terms of format that's right for you as a real estate agent, as a fitness person, I would say think about who you're trying to serve. Of course, when it comes to real estate, images, videos, anything visual that is going to be very helpful rather than audio only talking about it or, text format for trying to showcase a home. However, it's important for you to think about yourself as a creator. What types of content that actually resonate with you? And that is something that you're going to be more inclined to create. So sometimes as a creator, we don't think about ourselves as only about our audience, but I think we're shifting that narrative now to realize that it has to be something that we enjoy creating and something that we care about.
No,
There's
totally.
a question, yeah.
We do have a question, and I do want to highlight everyone who's watching. We have a special discount code for our annual plans. So you can find the code in the chat and also on the banner on the bottom of the screen.
Mhm.
So this is exclusive for this masterclass. So definitely check that out. Hero has a question. He's asking, how long were you a one-man production agency before you had your first team members on board?
That's such a great question. I'm so glad you asked. In fact, I've written numerous times about that journey. And so when I started being a podcaster in 2014, I was literally learning everything on my own. And keep in mind, back then, things like Upwork, freelancer.com were still very new. It was not very trivial to find someone. In fact, if some of you live in the States, I was literally looking for people on Craigslist for editing, for all these things. But I'm very glad that I started learning a lot of these skills on my own, including audio editing, using Audacity, things like designing things. This is before Adobe Express, and I have to learn how to design a podcast cover art, all those things. But luckily, I realized that I could benefit from hiring someone. So about 6 months in, which felt like a lifetime, I remember walking to an ice cream store with a friend. Through like a friend's introduction, I hired a young man who helped me edit my podcast. And I lost that person. I lost that resource 3 months later because he found another job. He was running short on time. So that's when I found my current producer, Herman, who has been with me ever since, I believe in 2015 or so. And I've been working with him literally ever since. And he's taught me so much. And we've been collaborating on many different initiatives, including that documentary I mentioned earlier. And then in 2018, kind of give you a little bit of a jump start here. 2018, I hired my social media person, Rose. That's something that I really didn't enjoy doing as much. I know the importance of repurposing content, but I didn't really have the time to be a creator and repurpose my content all the time. So I started working with Rose. And in 2020, I hired another person. So right now, we're a very small team of just 4 to 5 people. And other than me, nobody else is full time. Everybody's part time. So I hope that that helps a little.
No, no, definitely. And to anyone watching, please drop in your questions. We will keep on answering. Also,
Yeah.
we have a very special asset that we'll be sharing midway through this masterclass that will really help you with your content, right? But
Mhm.
on that note, Faye, you mentioned that you started off with a podcast, right? Um,
Mhm.
how did you end up with a podcast? And again, like podcasts
Mhm.
are so effort intensive, right? So how
Mhm.
did you decide that, hey, like a podcast is the best course of action for me? Why not? I'm sure there was no short form content back then, but
Mhm.
why not some other format or some other piece of content? Or did you experiment and then finally zero in on that format?
Yeah, I love that question. And first, I have to say that in case you don't hear the end of my answer, these days, if you're starting a podcast, I highly recommend that you consider doing a video podcast. And video is very powerful because you can also easily convert video into audio, and you cannot do that the other way around. I know it's trivial. This is why, for the first roughly 200 episodes of my podcast, it was purely audio. So, audio only. I couldn't really get the video back. All right, so luckily for the next 150 episodes, they were all videos. Now I started running my podcast because a couple of things happened. Number one, I turned 30 and I looked around, I woke up, it's like, okay, I'm the same, I feel the same, but there's got to be more to life than running around after a full-time job. So I wanted to create something new. And frankly, as an immigrant, as someone at the time, I didn't really have a green card. I didn't really have a lot of options to say, I'm just going to spin up my small business and leave my job today. So I thought podcasting was perfect because it enabled me to learn how to create content. And that wasn't on my own because my podcast was not a solo show. It was me plus another guest. Enabled me to really record these conversations with my dearest friends and mentors. And guess what? Years later, after we've left the job, not no longer in each other's lives, 9 to 5, I could go back to those episodes and I continue to nurture those relationships. And I saw a comment just now, how to generate leads.
Right.
Surprisingly, I had no idea how to actually do that from a podcast. There was no like courses or training on that. I was trying to be authentic. And here's what happened within 6 months, that several, not one, several of my podcast guests reached out to me and said, Faye, you know what? It's interesting. We're around like 50. Kids are going to college and we really want to start a new career. And you seem to really understand us. Great questions. So maybe we can figure something out. And these are no longer the type of clients that I have today who have already created something. But people started reaching out to me and I was jacks of all trades. I would start doing a lot of different things. And then these guests will refer their friends and family and colleagues to work with me on digital marketing. They figured out what I was doing, which I was a digital marketer already working full time. And even listeners start reaching out to me. So that was such an eye-opening moment.
No, that's super insightful. Um, I want to make this super practical, right?
Mhm.
Now we're getting a bunch of questions. Jali is asking,
Yeah,
I just
seeing
want to
that.
make enough to make this full time, to do this full time and not make loads of money. Totally makes sense. I think a lot of us can relate to that sentiment. And also, how can you monetize self help or mental health content, right? So we
Mhm.
started off with real estate. Now, if again coming back to that example of if I'm a real estate agent today, um, what would you recommend I start off with? Should I do short form? Should I do a podcast? Should I do long form video content? My recommendation would be short form video. What
Mhm.
about
Yeah. So for different people, it's going to be different. So I've worked with, at this point, dozens of clients. Some people find short form content to be easier because they're more familiar with social media. By short form, by the way, guys, we refer to content if it's video, well, even blog posts, but if it's video, it's generally under 60 seconds. Right.
right?
So it could be 15 seconds, it'd be 30 seconds. It doesn't have to be choking up all the way to like 59 seconds. Those are short form content. And then some people say that they're more comfortable with longer form content. They don't feel rushed. So those are webinars and podcasts. Some of them could run 30 minutes, even upwards of an hour or more these days. So it's something to do with your comfort level. Now, one thing I will say is don't try to judge or determine your type of content based on other very popular creators you have seen because their 60 seconds looks like a Netflix trailer. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You can see some very high production quality and costs involved on YouTube alone. So think about short form that are relevant to you. So using your example, Adil, if you're a real estate agent, if you're getting started, I think you can even just use your phone. We all have access to these incredible phones in our hands. It could be vertical content. You'll work really well as Instagram Reels or YouTube Shorts. Even for LinkedIn, you can use vertical video content. And you can record certain things about yourself, introducing yourself. And you can also introduce the neighborhood that you start selling your houses in, and really even fun restaurants, things that people may be doing in that neighborhood, things that actually matter. In the US, we call something like a walking score, how easy it is to walk from your house to somewhere. So 0 means you need a car to get to everywhere, and 99 or 100 means you're within reach of everything. And these make huge difference to different people. So it's not always about sell, 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 or you. It's about all these adjacent possibilities that could generate you new leads and interest.
No, that totally makes sense. In my experience, there's one little hack that
Mhm.
I'm sure you would have heard of, but for the people, I just did like a quick check of how many people have made at least 5 pieces of content here, right? And we're getting some responses. But guys, please give me a cheer if you made at least 5 responses, at least 5 pieces of content. But a great way to make content when you are targeting a specific audience, let's say if in real estate it's people who want to buy a house,
Mhm.
is to find out what are the questions that these people are asking, right, on the internet.
Mhm.
So that could be one would be, hey, if I want to buy a house in a certain neighborhood,
Mhm.
is this close to all the amenities, or is this a good neighborhood? Is this a bad neighborhood? These might be very basic questions that people are asking, and a very simple strategy to make content for these people is to answer these questions, right?
Mhm.
So if you're able to answer that, hey, like, what are the best neighborhoods in New York City? Right? I've never been to New York. If I was moving there, that would be one of
Mhm.
the questions that I was asking, right? And if I
Mhm.
saw a video that answered that question for me, that would be super relevant. I would probably save
Mhm.
it. I'd share it with my friends. I'd share it with my partner. And a great way to do this is a website called Answer the Public. And
Mhm.
this is where you can go. And I'm gonna just paste this in the chat. It's called Answer the Public, and you can just go here and ask keywords, and it generates all the questions that people online are asking. And this is super helpful because you can literally just take that question, answer it, convert it into a video,
Mhm.
and the likelihood of people resonating with that would be really high. Are there any like tips or tricks or strategies like this that people could use that you have come across in your experience so far?
Absolutely. The best type of content that always ranks on YouTube, for example, and also social media is the how to types of content, right? We have all walked through the pandemic together worldwide, and there are a lot of things we started DIY at home, things I never thought I would do. How to fix a toilet, how to install a bidet on my own, how to change tires. So there are a lot of videos you have seen, and the reason is you started with how to do something. So I think if you think about creating today, 10 pieces of short form content, how to do something in your domain, something you already know how to do. And those are really good content pieces to start with. But while you were talking, Adal, I was even thinking, brainstorming, as a real estate agent, what if you could do some street interviews? There are a lot of street interviews, like on the street, running into people. And if you're very nervous, you can even start with friends and people you know well. And then don't be afraid to be turned away, because as a real estate agent, you're a public agent. You're out there being turned down all the time. So might as well ask people, what is your dream what is your dream home like? What are some of your worries and concerns? So for example, interest rate has been pretty high. So a lot of people have concerns around that. So as a real estate agent, you can say, oh, that's not my domain. Talk to your accountant, talk to somebody, talk to your bank. What if you actually activate that part of you and trying to be as knowledgeable as possible? So instead of just being an agent trying to sell houses, what if you could be an educator? What if you can help people to the next level?
Right. No, 100%. I think
Mhm.
education and just helping people answer their questions is a great way to build trust. And trust is the first step to sell, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't always have to sell. If people believe you that
Mhm.
you are providing value to them for free, they're so much more likely to buy what you have,
Mhm.
even though what you are providing there is a more personalized version of what you are giving away for free. But we have a question from Iris here, and she's asking, how did you generate the income to be able to get to a place where you can leave your job?
Yeah, great question. And so for me, from my journey, in case you haven't noticed, I want to be as transparent as possible. So when I first left my full time job, I had at that point about 3 to 5 different clients on smaller projects, and many of them are not even retainers, which means I wasn't really charging them one, two, $3,000 a month every single month. So some of the projects could dry up after a month or two. So I didn't really have sufficient income to really live comfortably where I am, which is Boston, Massachusetts. I should put that in context, right? It's a very expensive place to be. So when I left my full time job, I continued on with my freelance projects, but I also started working as a freelancer for digital marketing, which means there are local small businesses and agencies that I was servicing and working for. So that really supplemented my income. Now, I want to say the reason why I did that, I know that there are many of you who are watching right now and later, maybe you have families, you have children, yeah, you're a caregiver. So there's no joke of you just declare, I'm going to eat ramen noodles for the next 3 months and run my business over here. And that's not really an option. So you have to supplement your income. Maybe, you have mortgages. We're just talking about real estate here for a second. So think about how you can start working on your side gig, a few times a week. And then think about how you can find maybe a freelance gig that pays, be able to supplement your income to a certain degree. And then, borrowing the time that now you have earned without being on the road all the time, and to really pursue your career. In terms of how long it took for me, I was pretty lucky because I had a professional career for 10 years already. I was already in my early 30s. So I was able to launch the Face Roll Media business pretty soon after I've gone solo. Now, I was able to ditch and really get rid of all the agency clients right around 2018. So frankly, that took me about a good 2 years at that point.
No, makes sense. We have another question from Yuri, and she's asking, what industry would you pursue to make money as soon as possible in video social media?
And then if you have to start over, what are the steps you would take? So, video social media marketing. So, I think there are two sides of the coin here. I want to clarify. There is work you can do for other people, something that you're good at and you can do for other people, other small businesses, other companies for the content that they need. And then there is the other side is the content that you want to create, whether you are a vlogger, you want to talk about live lessons or self help videos. So I kind of want to separate the two because a lot of the influencers and future creators really want to only focus on the content that they want to create. So there's a bit of I don't think it's so much of a sacrifice, but it's a decision you have to make early on. That are you okay taking on accepting consulting work? If the answer is yes, that makes the calculation a lot easier. So in this case, I would recommend if it's video marketing, it sounds like, I don't know you, Yuri, but it sounds like you are someone who could edit videos and who can tell stories through videos. That is an incredible skill set. I recommend you hone in on, because a lot of people don't have that. And perhaps you have skills such as editing using Final Cut Pro, or maybe Adobe Express, or maybe CapCut, Filmora, some of these popular video editing tools. So you could consider that. And I also want to, give a shout out to Video AI, because back in the day, 10 years ago, when we first started creating content and video content for other brands, we heavily relied on Final Cut Pro alone. And it took forever to resize the videos, to really find the snippets, the highlights of the video. But now I know people who are using tools such as Video AI to set up their own agencies in a very short period of time, which means something like you can take other people's webinars, other people's longer form video podcasts or YouTube videos and help them repurpose those type of content, and you can make really good money from that. So I want to mention that. And then once you have money coming in, you can think about how much of that to begin leveraging and investing in your own business and your own content.
Yeah. And on that note, we do have a 20% discount, which you can see at the bottom of the screen. Also in the chat, you can check out, for our app. But those are amazing tips, Faye.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So when we were talking before this conversation, right?
Mhm.
You mentioned something very interesting about not just things that people should be doing in order to be successful in social media, uh,
Mhm.
but also things that they should not be doing, right? Because
Mhm.
as important as goals are, anti-goals, things that you should
Mhm.
not do, are also really important. So, in your
Mhm.
experience, what are some of these anti-goals that people should be aware of and should potentially not do?
Absolutely. I'm going to start with a few, and Adol, I want to hear from you as well, because I think during our email exchanges, I was able to learn a lot from you and your team. A couple of things that comes to mind, and then you may have heard versions of this in the past. One is don't dwell too much on getting the perfect setup. So when I say that, the perfect camera, the perfect lighting, the perfect microphone, we invested in these products over time. And even before we kicked off the call, I actually revamped my office. So my background is never this plain, but I'm in the middle of, setting up a really big flexi spot desk and then deciding how to place certain things. I'm still deciding what the lighting, what color it should be. So for example, so don't invest so much time and energy and money into that before you start creating, before you hit record and before you hit publish. You're only going to get better over time. So that's a big no-no for sure. Secondly is you may have heard from other people trying to be either on a single platform and doing really well and trying to be everywhere all at once. I think those are very extreme measures. In terms of choosing the platform, don't just worry about where is most popular, what you have read on a news outlet today. Think about the platforms that you love and enjoy and that you appreciate. So if everybody's telling you you're a real estate agent, you should really be on Instagram, and you don't even have an Instagram account, where you had one, you close, you just don't find the platform to be that compelling to you, then don't force yourself to create for that platform. Instead, if you love YouTube, for example, then think about how you can leverage longer form content, video content, because I think for you, that's where the long-term success is going to be. So those are a couple of things that comes to mind. I can probably name 8 more, but Ado, what comes to mind for you?
So I'll tell you about one concept that someone mentioned a while ago when I was starting,
Mhm.
right? And it's based off of this Japanese idea called the ikigai. So I'm
Oh,
sure
I
some
love it.
people have heard of it, right? So ikigai
Yes.
is the intersection of four things
Mhm.
and find the purpose of life. But there's a concept that was derived from it, right? And
Mhm.
it's to find what is the best and optimal content for you to
Mhm.
make. So it's the intersection of three things. One is the type of content that you like making, like you mentioned. If let's
Mhm.
say you really like being on video or you like doing podcasts, then you should do that or try to do that at least. Number
Mhm.
two is the type of content that your ideal audience likes consuming, right? So if
Mhm.
let's say you are taking the real estate example, or someone mentioned mental health,
Mhm.
if people who are interested in mental health, they I'm assuming here they may not want to read long form text, right?
Mhm.
Hypothetically. So maybe writing a blog is not the best for you, right? And number three was what is the type of content that the platform wants to promote, right? Because
Mhm.
now in 2024, there are algorithms. You're not just making content for the audience, but also the algorithm. So it's the intersection of those three things that to me is the ideal content that gives you the highest likelihood to succeed on social media. So that means
Mhm.
if let's say I'm a real estate agent, I might be on YouTube and Instagram. Um,
Mhm.
and I might be making video content because I like making video content. And also, those platforms promote video content, right?
Mhm.
I probably would not be putting a podcast on Twitter, right?
Mhm.
Because it just like it doesn't make sense. That's not what people use Twitter for. That's not what Twitter promotes content for, right?
Mhm.
So that's, I think, one idea that really helps you understand what are the platforms that you need to prioritize. And like you said, I think everyone should start off with two platforms because you always should hedge
Mhm.
your investment. One
Mhm.
should be video, as again, like I'm personally very bullish on video, and one
Mhm.
should be text. So for example, for real estate agents, LinkedIn would probably be a great place to start. And either Instagram or TikTok, potentially YouTube if you're doing long form.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do see another question here. So Flyride has asked, are we able to build out multiple brands on Video AI account to handle client work all in one place? Okay, so someone from the team is going to respond to that. So Derek has asked that I provide social media management for realtors, and but I've only been able to get them to commit to using me when they have a listing. After their listing sells, they want to take a pause till the next one. And I think his previous question was any suggestions on creating retainer packages directed to these agents?
Interesting. I wonder if Adil and I have enough expertise to be able to comment on this. And I do know that I don't know where you're based, Derek, but I know that in the US, even though I'm not a real estate agent, I actually have a number of friends who work as real estate agents. It's very much a commission based type of job, at least for the majority of them, which means that you only make money when you're selling houses and when you close a sale. So I think a retainer model is quite interesting. I recommend you check out Chris Voss's book, The Full Fee Agent. There are a lot of creative ideas and negotiation tactics very specific to real estate agents. Now, I also know that previously Melissa Kwan, who is Melissa Kwan, Kwan. So she is a very successful entrepreneur as well. Previously, she actually launched an app for real estate agents. So I think there are other opportunities, perhaps besides being just the core of being a real estate agent that could offer you opportunities. I think, frankly, there is just so many different ideas, ideations that you could have outside of your traditional job. So that's what I welcome you to consider.
No, that totally makes sense. Uh, yeah, Derek is based out of Los Angeles, he says.
Oh,
Uh,
wonderful.
but great. So Iris is asking the book's name. Let me just.
It's called The Full Fee Agent, and it's by Chris Voss, Voss. And Chris was also on our documentary released currently also on Amazon Prime. I've interviewed him multiple times. He is just incredible. He's the author of Never Split the Difference. A lot of people are quite familiar with
Right.
his work, and I'm very. He previously was an ex FBI international negotiation, hostage negotiation expert. And I'm very glad that he wrote the Full Fee Agent book. So, Derek, please check it out. I think he's going to offer so much value to you.
Yeah, but on the note of negotiations and sales
Mhm.
and things like that, right? What is like, how do you define content that sells? Because I think there's a very
Mhm.
counterintuitive answer here, and I'd be really interested to know your response to it. So, like, what is good content that helps people convert leads, clients, things like that?
Absolutely. So I want to maybe talk about 2 to 3 different types of contents. You may be wondering Faye, how are you being discovered? So at the very beginning of the webinar, I mentioned that I work with a number of AI companies. Well, clearly I'm on one of them right now. I know this is something that we decide to do as a collaboration, and this is unpaid. By the way, these are all my honest opinions. And how did video AI discover me? Is the same way how other brands discovered me. So 2 major channels: YouTube, so Phase Roll Media on YouTube, as well as our blog. So our blog is relatively new that we really put a lot of effort in because we want to hone in on SEO. Not just using videos on YouTube alone. Something I should have mentioned as a don't do or as a lessons learned is that don't just rely on any platform. Have your own property. So your website is as close to it. I also recommend, of course, having an email list. People's emails are incredibly valuable so that you don't have to rely on any platform's algorithms, right? So that's basically one thing. And uh, so different types of content. I feel like I derailed myself. Now, people find me, and it's interesting. Pay attention to how these brands describe you. So a lot of the AI companies reach out to me and say, obviously, they want more signups, but they also want to reduce churn, which means they don't want people to subscribe to their software and then cancel, before the free trial ends or within 3 months. So they want me to create tutorial content to talk about how to relate this specific AI tool, this feature even, to small business owners and creators. And they believe I am good at that. So how do I demonstrate that in the content I'm creating right now? So that's something that I believe that's something you want to sell and do more of. Do a good job based on your existing content, and the right leads, the right client's going to walk right through that door. And there is something else that I'm intentionally creating because I want to explore maybe a new area of my services. So one thing is that I was hired. So I did a bunch of videos for Zoom webinars during the pandemic. And I never saw myself as someone who would just be creating Zoom tutorials for years and years. That was just something that I did to help out a number of fitness instructors and my small business owner friends. And little did I know that I was then found by the Women Leaders Association, the CEO Club. Their CEO reached out to me and asked me to moderate meetings and webinars with thousands of attendees. So I'm one-on-one interviewing people like Ariana Huffington, Mark Cuban, Steve Wozniak. I
Wow.
couldn't even believe it. But guess what I did after that? I realized how much I enjoyed doing that. So I talked about the rare opportunity of interviewing these incredible prolific people. I talk about how to moderate and technically run and manage a 5,000 person webinar. So by creating those content now, suddenly, guess what? More companies realized and reach out to me to moderate and host their webinars as well. Now, one more thing I want to mention is that we as creators constantly think about, and I just thought of this like this morning, that we constantly think about like how to make money, make more money. But what if you can actually get things for free? So when you're a content creator, if you happen to be a technical tutorialist, you can actually get invited to use a lot of the products, try them for free. Sometimes you get like a 1 year subscription free, even for the products you already use and love. That's a lot of money saved. If you're a business owner, you know what I'm talking about. When I do taxes, I'm like, I can't believe how much money I spent on software. And also, another area I want to mention is we love creating content outside of tech and AI. In particular, we love circus and performing artists. So we started a website called performingarts.world. And then I put all my podcast content, and webinars and film a docu-series onto this platform. And now wherever there's a circus in town, when we travel to Montreal, we reach out to their PR and marketing teams and say, we want media tickets. For almost 100% of the time, if they get our invite to write for them, we almost always get the tickets for free, no matter how expensive. And we often invite our family and friends as well. So that's something that I want you to think about in a very flexible way: is how can the content serve you beyond just exchanging, just dollar exchanges?
Right. Actually, I've never thought of it that way.
Mhm.
Of course, these barter collaborations have always existed, but I've never thought that it could really exceed beyond just the realm of content and making videos and doing
Mhm.
these things. Super interesting. You mentioned that you're obviously very big on YouTube, right? And
Mhm.
I've consumed a lot of your videos, very valuable content. I do want to touch up a little upon what makes successful content on YouTube, right? And I say
Mhm.
this because I want to set up context for something that we have in store for the people that have stayed with us so far. Um,
Mhm.
I think YouTube has understanding what works well on YouTube really applies to all different types of content, right?
Mhm.
And I'm sure you have like a framework in mind of understanding how to go about making these videos that lead to them being successful and reaching the right people. So if you were to advise a very new person who's making a YouTube video for the first time, what would that advice be? How should I go about thinking of making a successful YouTube video?
Hmm. For sure. So there is such a thing as an anatomy of a YouTube video. So again, you may have heard the structure from elsewhere. So the idea of an HICC, I believe it's hook, intro, content, and call to action. So HICC. And this framework really does work very well. And what it really does for you is to create a structure that you can follow and just make it a little easier to create content. When you think about these things, what is a hook? Meaning, why should people watch this video as opposed to the other? Are there other similar videos on YouTube? The same thing as when you shop for something on Amazon, there are a lot of related products and recommendations. Why should they choose you? What is that hook? And so introduction is then you can have a little bit more time to kind of lean into why this matters, right? There's one thing how to do it, but why should you do it? And I think traditionally, when we talk to other people, like when we run a business, it's just the opposite of, I think, small talk, right? People are go walk into your shop. People want to hire you as a real estate agent. People want to choose you as a fitness instructor. You have to win them over pretty fast. And that's what a YouTube video is all about. There's very little time to waste. And thank you for sharing that, Adel. And so that's the structure. Now, secondly, you don't have to really guess wildly. So there are tools such as TubeBuddy. So TubeBuddy, tubebuddy.com is something that we have been using since 2019. And I remember my producer and I said, oh, maybe we just check it out, and vidIQ as well. Absolutely. Maybe we don't need it down the road, but turns out we did. So what you can do, for example, using again real estate as an example, maybe you want to create a video called top 10 places in LA, or top 10 up and coming neighborhoods to buy houses in 2024. What you can do is you can insert that title into TubeBuddy or vidIQ. It is going to give you a score, and so that score is very helpful. It's called the overall score, but then it's going to break it down to say popularity. How many people are already creating similar content,
Right.
and competition, right? If so many, you're up against a pretty big competition, and the long tail keywords and the long tail content, which means there's less competition, but people are searching for. That is the golden goose.
Right. No, totally. I've heard, interestingly enough, I've heard like a slight variation of that HICC.
Yeah.
What I heard, I think it was from Ali Abdal, was
Mhm.
HIVE, which is hook, intro, value, ending, which is exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I love Ali Abdal. He is
yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the reason why that is important, just to add on a little bit to what you
Mhm.
just mentioned, is think of your video
Mhm.
as one small portion of the entire screen or digital real estate that someone is
Mhm.
looking at on the homepage. So that
Mhm.
means you have to give someone the reason to click on that piece of video. And that is exactly what the hook is. That means you have to give them the reason on the thumbnail and the title of
Mhm.
why they should click that, as opposed to hundreds of other videos that they're seeing on screen. That's one.
Mhm.
Once they have clicked it, you also have to give them the reason in
Mhm.
the first few seconds of your video to stay on the video. Because
Mhm.
again, guys, you have to realize that there is so much content being uploaded online that everyone has an option. Everyone, like, it's so easy for them to just scroll their thumb and go to the
Mhm.
next video. So you have to give them a very compelling reason, which is
Mhm.
called the hook. And this applies to even short form content. Your first 5 seconds are incredibly important. And if
Mhm.
people are not on your video, are not hooked for the first few seconds, they are not going to remain, they're not going to keep watching. And
Yeah.
from the platform's perspective, that if I'm Instagram and I'm noticing that someone's video is, people are not watching it, there's no reason for me to recommend that video to other people, because my
Mhm.
entire job is to
Mhm.
give high quality content to my customers, which are the
Mhm.
viewers. And the reason why I'm drilling down on hooks so much is, if you guys follow us on Instagram, which I highly recommend you do, we have started a new series that is dedicated to hooks. In fact, actually, I have the board right here, for the people who
Yeah, I
have
love it. Show
content.
us.
Yeah, it's the board that we use to showcase all the hooks. But
Mhm,
essentially, what we've been doing is scouring the internet for short form videos with amazing hooks, right? So that means hooks that have worked well for fitness influencers, for people who are real estate agents, for people who are in who are like math creators and science creators, and
mhm,
anyone and everyone that we can find, that
mhm,
have amazing hooks that have yielded millions of
mhm,
views, right? And what we've done is, after for the past few weeks, obviously for making the videos, we had to collect these hooks and compile them, and to create videos out of them. But what we ended up getting was not just content for our own videos, but also an incredibly valuable asset, an incredibly valuable repository of
mhm,
hooks that have resulted in over 100 million views, right?
mhm, wow.
We
Mhm,
have a repository of over 100 hooks that have
mhm,
resulted in 100 million views. And to everyone watching, if you're with us so far, you will be getting a copy of this ebook directly in your email. And the reason why it's so important is, even myself as a creator, like, we do this full time, and I'm sure you've done this to a certain
mhm,
extent as well, that I still take inspiration from people who are doing this better than me, right?
mhm,
And in this repository, you're going to find hooks with variables. So that means, for example, the hook that I have right here is, did you know in the film name in one scene and explain, right? So that means you can literally use this hook and plug and play it into whatever your content and niche is. Um,
mhm,
and for us, this becomes incredibly important, because we can literally pick a hook from this list and
mhm.
tailor it to the content that we are making. And why I'm doubling down on this is because I'm personally super excited to share it with the people on the call here. So please look forward to it directly coming to your email IDs that you've used to sign up to this masterclass. And yeah, hopefully that is going to help you make better videos with better hooks that gives you better retention. But I don't want to go too much into these things. Is there anything else, Faye, that people should know about successful YouTube content if they're making long form, short form videos for the first time?
Yeah, absolutely. I see a question from Yamike99, new to YouTube content. My question is how to make content more engaging for my viewers to subscribe and come back, right? To basically be loyal subscribers. There are a lot of subscribers who are kind of like dead weight, don't always watch your content. You know that they're detailed YouTube analytics. But something we haven't really talked about is one, creating serial content. So that's an idea kind of borrowed from podcasting. So instead of thinking about your YouTube videos as isolated individual videos that have nothing to do with each other, think about how you can create a series, right? Almost like a little bit like a TV series. So for example, for real estate, you can start with, you know, uh, basically 101s for new home buyers. You can also target certain age groups because people who are buying homes, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s have very different needs. You can create different playlists. So long story short, more than one video that target a specific group of audience. And number two is once you create enough sufficient content that are really resonating, remember that's not one video, guys. You got to create at least 20 videos and put it out there with proper titling, thumbnails. I know Adal already kind of pointed thumbnail is the first image you see, a lot of pointing, a lot of different actions, incentivize people to watch the content. But after that is pay attention to the comments. Always reply to each and every comment, even that means a heart or thank you, you're welcome. But pay attention to questions because questions are absolutely the best next video ideas. Questions in the comments means that people have watched your videos, but now they have something else to ask. They have something else that they need. And especially when you see recurring like themes of content, I have to tell you, when our channel was first monetized, after actively running it, producing content for 3 months in March 2020, you always remember that. From March 2020 to the next 3 months through June, all the videos we publish are all from the comments section. And each video was getting so many views without any ads, anything, any push, any promotions, because people are waiting for me to answer those questions.
Right.
Mhm.
Um, no, I know that feeling, and it's unmatched. Life's Happening Devotional has a question, but
Mhm.
I just want to double down on one thing and add one hack that I have figured out very recently, that I just wish someone told me about when I was starting making videos. So a very common question that I get as a semi-experienced creator is that I don't have that binge bank yet, right? I don't have those repository of videos to find out those questions and these comments that people have put on my videos. And you mentioned a great way to find content ideas, which are from comments. But if you don't have videos and hence those
Mhm.
comments, what you can do is vidIQ has a Chrome extension which lets you filter any YouTube videos comments for a question mark. So a great hack is for you to go to a similar channel. For example, if you are in the productivity space, you could, let's say, go to Ali Abdal's channel, right?
Mhm.
And go to his one of his top performing videos, and use the vidIQ Chrome extension to filter the comments for
Mhm.
questions. So essentially, you will be doing exactly the same exercise that Faye just mentioned, except
Mhm.
not on your videos, but on someone's videos who is already successful in your
Mhm.
same niche. So
Yeah.
that automatically, without any additional effort, gives you a huge bank of questions that you can answer, and make videos even without having the experience of having a bank of content that people can go and watch.
That's a great idea. I love it.
Yeah. But we had a question here from Life's Happening Devotional that I'm new to the game. I have a devotional podcast on Spotify that I RSS feed to YouTube. So
Mhm.
it's audio only. How do I create content for this devotional Bible based channel?
I'm so glad you asked that because we did touch base on podcasting and then video content. So, at the beginning of my journey as a podcaster, I remember as soon as I started uploading audio content on YouTube, I was criticized. And this was years ago. And guess what? Years later, it's a really good idea. Not only that, YouTube has acknowledged the importance of podcasters, not just video podcasters, but audio only podcasters as well. So, yes, you should upload your content there. And the good news is there are a lot of different platforms right now. Even if you just Google how to upload my audio only podcast to YouTube, there are a number of tools readily available. One of which is called repurpose.io, for example, that's going to grab your RSS feed and then upload the whole thing onto YouTube. And then you could even schedule them to go out, one episode at a time as opposed to 300 episodes simultaneously. Now, with that said, there are certain things, smart things you could also do to promote your audio only podcast, such as creating a channel trailer. Maybe that one contains video, if you choose so, to really introduce the series. Because people on YouTube have slightly different behavior, different expectations. Now, for those of you who are thinking, like, will people really listen on YouTube? The good news is a lot of us actually have what's called a premium subscription, right? They're not cheap either. What's really nice about that is that I like going for a walk or doing laundry at home or errands, and then I actually don't look at the screen. I'm only listen to the audio, even if the piece of content is video. So remember that people are these days using YouTube as a podcast listening platform, and that's precisely what YouTube has been wanted to do. So it basically is a platform. They don't want to lose their users to Spotify, to Google Podcasts, to Apple. They want everyone.
Yeah, no,
Mhm.
100%. In a past life, I used to help people with their podcasts, and it's definitely very challenging
Mhm.
converting or transferring an audio only podcast to a video platform.
Mhm.
But the one thing that I 100% recommend, that anyone who is in that situation do, is make sure that you're really focusing on your title and thumbnail, because although you may not have the video for that podcast, the very if you're just able to get people to come on your video even though
Mhm.
it's just audio, that can help you tremendously in getting more people to just listening to it,
Mhm.
because if you have the right people coming on the video, they just may not mind that there's no video on it, it's just audio, and you can still have a successful audio only podcast.
Mhm.
We have another question from Yuri, and she's asking, what would you advise to overcome the stage fright?
Yeah,
Which
great question.
I relate to before my first live today. But yes.
Yeah, Adol is doing it for the first time, and he's done really well because he's a creator. I would say practice, practice, practice. If you go back to the first few YouTube videos I've uploaded, I think I was really trying not to look or sound nervous, but I clearly was. And you have to get over that, not by hiding, but to keep practicing it and to keep pushing content up. That includes if you cringe when you edit your own video. You just have to get through that. Now, live stream and particularly those webinars are definitely a pretty daunting. I'm wearing a Aura ring. It will tell me that this morning my heart rate in the past hour is definitely higher, and it will tell me when I host those 5,000 person webinars, I'm still pretty nervous, even though I'm much better than when I started 3 years ago. Now, there's one trick. Whether you're on stage, live stage, maybe you have a TED talk coming up, or you're doing these live streams, it's just to pretend, just to know that you have one audience and one audience only. So as much as I love seeing all the questions and all that, my attention is reserved for Adol. It's
Right.
this conversation that we are having. I'm not too worried about the 100, 1,000 or more people who may be watching this now or later. And that's the best way to think about this.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
I also heard a mentor of mine say this, which made so much sense that content oftentimes is just a transfer of energy, right?
Mhm.
So a great way to overcome stage fright is to only focus on one person, and
Mhm.
also to really hype yourself up, right? You can do this by music, you can do this by movement. Right
Mhm.
before this masterclass, I was just like, jumping around a little bit to feel better. And
Yeah.
also a little psychological hack that I was reading somewhere, that if you're eating something right before, when you have like an event coming up, um,
Mhm.
your brain tells itself that since you're eating, you
Mhm.
would be eating in a situation where you are threatened, so that
Mhm.
also calms your nerves, which is like
Mhm.
a life hack that I've learned over time. But Yuri has another question. What are your thoughts about faceless video content, and which industry you'd recommend?
Yeah, faceless videos are getting very popular these days. In fact, there's several AI avatar companies that I'm thinking about and working with. Synthesia, for example, is one company. The other one's called HeyGen and DID, among others. So there are many ways to produce faceless content. I think some of the channels, as you can see on YouTube, are already getting quite successful. Maybe either using only B-roll, like imagery and scenery type of content if you're running a self-help, for example, like a self-acceptance, self-help type of channel, meditation. Pretty easy to do in that sense. Now, if you want to basically use yourself as an avatar or a pre-built, pre-existing avatar, you can also do that even with a PowerPoint presentation. There are many ways to go about it, but it's definitely not an idea I'm shutting down. With that said, if you are not as camera shy, and if you want to just practice being on video, being in front of the camera, because it has many different benefits, like how you conduct yourself over a Zoom call or sales calls. If you're running your business trying to close more leads, it's a really good practice. I would encourage you to consider maybe both, doing both as opposed to only faceless videos.
No, 100%.
Mhm.
I mean, having a face to your personal brand or to your page definitely helps make a deeper connect with your audience. Uh,
Mhm.
Life's Happening Devotional had a follow-up question of, how do I get the right audience, and what camera would you recommend for a beginner like myself who has not yet generated any money at this point?
So I think there's a camera question there. So before you want to invest in anything, if you have a smartphone like mine, whether it's an iPhone, an Android, wherever you are in this world, your camera, your smartphone likely is good enough. Some people even use their webcam to record content. I know I have done that. Currently, I'm using a Logitech Brio, which is a 4K camera, and that's also fine. Now, if you or there are also photographers among us, you can actually use your photography camera and to record video. So devices you can get your hands on, that will be really good. Now, what we don't know from that question is the type of audience you want to build. So you literally have no idea right now. What you can do is actually, there's one trick Tim Ferriss offered. I can't believe this still works. But this may be even from 10 years ago. Look at your own credit card statement. Look at where you spend your money. They're going to come from different categories, right? Look at where you spend your fun money, what you focus on, the gadgets and tools. Maybe it's restaurants, but know what your interests are. I know that sounds a little silly, but I remember when I was working 9 to 5 full time, and after a little while, you become a little numb to your situation, right? You sleep very little, you eat very fast, and your life is just you're constantly on a treadmill. But once you slow down and really check out who you are, what you enjoy. I think that's my biggest lesson I've learned as a creator. I finally realized I know who I am, what I want to create. So be patient and take your time and to learn. I think that is life's happening devotional. How do I get the right audience? Absolutely. And I realized you sent another question prior, which is you're running a podcast. Maybe it's based on the Bible study and such. I think getting the right audience there hopefully will be pretty straightforward. There's a lot of Christian content on YouTube that are getting faith-based content that are getting very popular. I think you'd be surprised how quickly people do find you and your content.
No, that makes so much sense. Hopefully, that was helpful. Life's happening devotional, but do let us know if you have any further questions. Faye, we are at time, and just before we start wrapping up, is there anything else you would like our viewers to know that would help them, be successful at content creation and
Mhm.
grow their business?
Absolutely. Getting started is really, really important. Not worry about how you look, the perfect setup. I think a lot of the people through comments I realize are getting started. So that is the number one deal. And that's the number one rule. Give yourself a timeline. Even if it means end of this week or next, just publish something. Don't worry about the likes and comments. Don't worry about what other people will say. Knowing that this is going to be a long goal, a longer journey, and you're going to cut yourself some slack. Remember, I think one really important lesson is be careful with self-talk, right? Like send that positive energy to you, and you may every once in a while to say, "Oh, I look horrible. I don't feel good today." That content has no value. You may find yourself saying those things, but you got to catch yourself to realize this is all part of the journey.
Right.
So. Other than that, I hope you'll visit my website, feisworld.com, FEISWORLD. On that first homepage, you will notice that there's a free masterclass. You can learn more about full stack content marketing, which helps you understand the deal between YouTube, podcasts, even webinars, how to go about choosing which one to start, how to play the long game. And also on there, I have a lot of tools and resources, and there's a drop down particular for AI tools as well as tools for small business owners. And hope you find some of them helpful. And let me know if you have any questions via email or at FaceWorld, pretty much everywhere on social media.
Yeah, and we will link everything in the description below. Hopefully, on the note of AI tools, you also find video AI helpful. If you haven't used it already, please, we have a 20% off our annual plan. You can see it on the banner below. It will be in the description, also somewhere in the chat. It is FEI20 to get 20% off. But it was wonderful talking to you, Faith. It was super insightful.
Thank you so
I
much.
did watch that masterclass that you just mentioned, and I highly recommend everyone else watch it as well. Um, yes, someone just pasted it in the chat. But yeah, I think this is it.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. I will pay attention to the comments as this video is streamed in multiple places. I'll pay attention to comments and let me know. Wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, same here. All right.
All
Any?
right, until next time.
Yes. Until next time.
All right, bye, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone.